Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the March episode of the Broker Breakdown. A little bit of a different outlook on things. I'm holding my mic today because I'm at the office. I've decided I kind of want to change some things up on how I record. Background's a little bit different because I didn't like the first one. But we are getting the office painted, so this is going to look completely different in April again. So a lot of things are going on, but we do have a returning guest again to the podcast this month. Kim, welcome back.
Thanks, James. It's so nice to see you and to be back to support your podcast. For those of you who don't know me, James and I met through James's ambition more so, but he met me back when I worked at Mazda. I am a sales consultant currently here at Finch Chevrolet in London, Ontario. I've been here for almost a year now, but I've been selling for about a total of about 4 to 5 years. So I'm super excited to be back and just chat and catch up and see what's going on.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. I know I had you on over a year ago now, which is crazy to think, actually. And Obviously your world changed a lot. You are now selling a lot of trucks. So that's fun.
Yeah, it's definitely a transition. And I know that it wasn't something that I kind of saw for myself. But sometimes when you want to elevate your career, you got to build your foundation. I always think that you got to know your passion. I have a lot of friends and family that hop from job to job or even in the same industry from company to company. And we all know that's not a great look, but sometimes you got to make the change. And after, I think the 4 years I spent at Mazda, it kind of allowed me to grow some skill sets and see some things that I wanted to see more of. So making the switch to selling, your trucks, your Escalades, just a whole flip side. It was definitely, I think I sat on it, and I hate to say this, I think I sat about the idea of elevating my career for about 6 months because you never want to leave somewhere where you've developed such
100%.
Roots. And you love the people that you work with. But there are some things where you have to ask yourself, is this something that you can see long-term, or what do you see long-term, right? And at the end of the day, you always have to put yourself first. So as much as I want to thank for City Mazda and the team for everything they provided me and everything I learned from them, it just helped me kind of enhance my career. And being at Finch Chevrolet, it is different. So I went from a team of, let's say, 4 to 5 salespeople to now 12. There's 12 of us.
That's a big jump.
Yeah, it's definitely a big jump. A bigger team overall, a bigger dealership. And it's been great overall. The adjustment is more so the customers. So having the book of business I had at Mazda, I knew giving that up was another bullet I had to swallow, bullet I had to bite, I guess. And it was that was tough because I knew essentially I had to start over. I know what I'm doing, and that's the upper hand I had. But starting over with not no referrals, but someone that's driving a CX-5 is definitely not going to be interested in driving a heavy duty truck. Right.
Yeah. I do find though trucks almost sell themselves though, realistically. Those clients are so indulged in that market, right? Even for me, I drive a truck. It would be almost virtually impossible for me to go to something different now. I grew up driving trucks. I drive a truck now. The only other car I had when I had my first vehicle was a Honda Civic. I loved it, but I just can't ever think of being in something smaller, especially from a few years ago when I was in my accident. I think back, if I was in a sedan, I could have been severely hurt in that, right? So I think people that drive trucks, they're just that, they're always going to. So it's almost realistically, they come in and they're like, this is what I want. There's really no ifs, ands, or buts, right?
I 100% agree with you on that. And that was the thing that my managers kind of shared with me. They're honestly, Kim, a lot of people that come in here, it's the odd, 1 out of 15 customers that come in and not knowing what trucks offer or what trucks can have, the engine size, towing capacity, things like that. Most of the customers I have had, they know exactly what they want. And generally, I just have to guide them towards the right deal. Right. And
exactly.
just trying to be versatile in that sense is what I've tried to kind of hone in on. But usually you guys know what you want, and I'm not going to stand in the way or try to tell you differently. I'm just here to try to get you the best deal. That's kind of what I've run with. But it's more so I went from one brand as well to we've got
that's tough too, right?
Yeah, Chevrolet, Buick, GMC, and Cadillac. And one thing I know a lot of people always praise on, no matter what industry you're in, is your product knowledge. So that was quite a lot to grasp as well.
Well, I
Um,
know you were big on that at Mazda. Like I remember like you knew like you didn't even have to look at anything. You could tell me everything about whatever model we were looking at. Again, like I think that's what puts you aside from other people is that you were very, very good at all those things. And now, yeah, yes, you have a few more models you might have to deal with now because you're dealing with, I think, it's four brands, right?
Four brands, and each brand has at least 20, sorry, I'm going to say at least 12 different models, or 10 to 12 different models, give or take, right?
Yep.
Um, so, but at the end of the day, the idea is just like, it's just the only way you can learn is to kind of throw yourself into it. And that's what I did. But it's just knowing the little specifications and a couple things. And I'm always like, what is, like, my answer is always like, if I don't have the answer to something, I am not going to try to give you an answer. We all know. You just have to say, let me ask somebody who does know.
Oh, 100%.
I just tend to say that a bit more than I want to. But that's okay, because like not everybody's perfect. But yeah, so I think that has been the biggest adjustment. But it's just doing that, but being part of, so the Finch Auto Group themselves. So they have 9 stores in Ontario. I think we have one in Sarnia, we have one in Georgetown, and we have the rest of them are spread across London, right? So it's a very reputable auto group to be a part of. They support us in what we do, and it's really neat how it's a large family and the resources that we have in order to serve our customers. So I'm definitely happy with the pivot I've made. I definitely think that being part of this auto group is somewhere that most, if in the sales industry, the auto sales industry in London, Ontario, you can't say it's going to look bad on your resume, and you definitely can take a lot away from it, right? So
yeah. I had a family member, but actually a client of mine that actually recently, I don't know how recent it's been. I don't even know if he even took delivery of the vehicle, but he ordered like one of like the Corvettes from you guys like
yeah.
a while ago, and he's still waiting for it because it's like a custom order, right? Like they told him like it was going to be at least like 2 years wait. So, and
Yep.
I remember talking to him, like he said it was like a great experience working with you guys because again, he's
Yeah.
always driven Ford. I
Yep.
actually got him into a Dodge recently, but then he like loves his Corvettes, so
Of
he
course.
went down to you guys, and like I said, that was like probably 2 years ago now. So it just
And it
yeah.
honestly, depending on what he ordered, so like the last time we had spoke, wait lists were a thing, right? Like I think the last time we spoke, it was like if you wanted a vehicle, get in the market. If it's like if you're not planning on buying for 6 months from now, like get in the market, figure out which brand you want, figure out what you, because if you're particular on color and just custom appearances and things like that, or certain features, what you want is probably not going to be on the lot, right?
Yeah, I remember you also saying too, like almost go use because like
Mm-hmm.
it was to the point it was that bad almost that like people just
Yeah.
couldn't get new cars, and you were like saying like it almost makes more sense to buy something used, wait for
Yep.
the new car, and then trade it in when it comes in because that's kind of how the market was at that time over a year
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah, a lot of my customers are doing that. And so now when it comes to waitlist, we're at least, so every brand is different. I've reached out to I have spoken to some of the sales staff back at Mazda just to see where they're at, to see what it's like, because every manufacturer is different. Inventory has been returning, and we currently have so many vehicles on our lot that we have an overflow lot, and that's new inventory.
Wow.
So there's only a one-off of a particular model that might not be available, and things like, for if you're ordering a Corvette, we don't have them readily on ground still, but if you're
Yeah.
looking at, yeah, they're not readily on ground. We do have a couple pre-owned ones, but when it comes to ordering a Corvette or any specialty vehicle, right,
Yeah.
even your AVs, things like that, if you're not totally customizing it out, it doesn't take that long to get it, right? Let's just, that's the way it goes. If you're looking at something where it's pretty, what you would buy, something else someone would buy, you're not waiting more than 6 months. Like if you were to order just, a regular Stingray in whatever color, you could probably get that by the time the driving season opens up, right? But if you're ordering like a Z06 or anything that has all these extra mods, you're definitely waiting more than a year,
Oh,
right?
100%. Yeah. It's the
So
specialty stuff, right?
yes, exactly. And yeah, when it comes to inventory levels, at least to speak on these brands, this manufacturer, we have inventory. And we're very lucky to have the inventory that we have. We're one of the larger Chevrolet dealerships in the area. But yeah, and if we can't get it, we can probably locate it now. So before, we call them dealer trades, right? Other dealers were not willing to forfeit or give up certain vehicles because they didn't have them, right? Now, if you came in to me, James, and you were looking for a specific color, nothing too crazy, I could probably get it for you. If I didn't have it on my lot, I could probably get it for you within a week, right? It's not so much a seller's market anymore. I think the tables are turning where consumers now have a bit more, let's call it buying power, right? So before, I think when we spoke, negotiation was a little bit tight. Now the market's changing, right? You might have room to negotiate a little bit now, especially on new vehicles because we have the inventory, right?
Well, even going back to when we first chatted, like over a year ago, it was funny. I always brought up the conversation to people and I said, like, look on TV, look on the radio. Like, dealerships are just not marketing deals right now because they really don't need to. People were coming in, whatever the sticker price said, that's what they were paying for it now.
100%.
And now and in the last maybe 2 quarters, last 6 months, I've seen a complete shift where now dealers and brands are now putting out deals now. And hey, like, we're trying to get stuff gone because it's just not, the inventory is back. We're not back to where it was before, but at least it's gotten better where now they are able to kind of put these deals out again, right? So the market's definitely shifted since we've chatted before.
Oh yeah. And I think it's a great thing because obviously, in respect to the economy and what everybody was thinking, how I think there might be conversations of recession happening in the future, but at least what we were thinking with interest rates are still a little high, right? Some new inventory, like right now, some of our trucks, depending on what model you're purchasing, if you have heard about it, there is 0% financing, right? But the reason why GM can offer 0% financing is essentially we are moving enough inventory to be able to do that, right? But with other vehicles, most of your SUVs, you're still looking at around 5%, right? Used cars, you're still looking around 9 or 10%, which is still crazy to me, absolutely crazy to me. But then again, you look at the housing market, right? I personally just purchased a home, and the rate that we secured over a 3-year term it's a fixed rate, but we were able to get 5.5%. And I think a lot of my friends right now that either did a variable or something in the last year, it's closer to 6, right?
Yep.
But the conversations of rate, the Bank of Canada, like it's always ever changing. I think will we see the low interest rates of 2% on everything like we used to? I don't know. I'm not going to hold my breath on it.
Yeah, I don't think for a while we'll ever see it back to that point. I think it will come down. Will it come down as much as people think this year? I don't think so. I chat with a lot of mortgage brokers and stuff in the real estate world, and they said, like, don't hold your breath on seeing it slashed in half this year. It's probably going to get pushed into the late part of this year into 2025, but still the only thing I really concern myself with is that I am seeing a lot of mortgage brokers do this 3-year thing where they're basically putting clients onto 3 years. But then I also think long term, 3 years from now, if you're doing this with majority of your clients, all this stuff's going to renew, and it's going to be a lot of work to renew this, which is good for a consumer standpoint, because if these things do go down in 3 years from now, great, like that's a great conversation. But hey, we also have to look at the flip side of, hey, if things go up, that's, again, we can't really tell the future either, right? So it's really just all about, trying to do what's best for you and your client. But again, I also think, well, what if things go up again, right? Like I don't know, right?
That's a fear. I don't know. My bet is I'm hoping that we kind of plateau, right? But we don't know, right? I'm hoping that kind of in 3 years' time, we'll see what happens, and hopefully it's not a kick in the butt. It's just, I remember I have some friends, and some of them are sitting with variable terms, and like the interest rate with the fact that it's variable, right, shooting up as high as that part's terrifying. I think for me, at least, if I'm gonna put my input on what kind of mortgage. I remember when I worked at the bank back in the day, a variable rate made sense because we were talking about rates where like it was nowhere near what we're looking at now.
Exactly.
A variable rate would make sense because you could go down all the way to 1%, right, or whatever it was, whatever the changing aspect of that was. But now I'm like, nope, not even playing with fire. I'm okay with this term. I'm like, I like to know what my payment is.
Exactly.
And I like to know it's not going to change. But yeah, so like just with interest rates, the conversations are still there. So when my customers still, like, if you walk into my dealership, James, and you ask if you haven't been in the market for six months to over a year, regardless of what you came in for, I always kind of like, my spiel is like, okay, so what kind of vehicle are you looking for? This is what it would look like if you bought this vehicle used. This is the interest rate. However, this is the price point, which is lower than if you were buying a new vehicle. However, on a new vehicle, you would obtain a lower rate. what's more important to you, right?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of, again, it's been educating your customers. The last time we spoke, I said that was a very integral part of trying to earn customer loyalty. It's just educating them. And I think a lot of my customers, they do appreciate that, even if I don't end up selling them because I might not have what they're looking for. Educating your customers is something, anybody that were to educate me before I purchase anything from them, like I can only be ever grateful, right? So again, it's still teaching. Yeah.
Yep. And again, that's what we do all the time too. I literally said to someone yesterday, I don't ever think of myself as a salesperson. I think of myself more as an educator because I give people knowledge, and at the end of the day, they choose what they want to do with that knowledge. If they want to go with us, great. If they don't, awesome. But they at least came out of that conversation with more knowledge than they did prior to us even chatting. So that's, at the end of the day, I feel like I've done my job if someone is a little bit more educated after our conversations all the time. So
Yeah. And like, mind you, like I learned a lot from my customers. Like, a big part of being part of GM is they are more so. Mazda was not, I think when you guys had asked me last time, Mazda wasn't at the forefront of EVs, right?
yep.
Here at GM, we have the Corvette, the electric Corvette. I think it's the E-Ray, and then we've got we have an EV Silverado 1500. All like you can order an EV truck now. I
Yep.
don't know
I
when
know
it's going to
that's
get
coming
here.
out very soon.
Yeah, you can order it. Don't have the price point yet. You can order it. I think we're working our way to there, as well as the Equinoxes, right? We have the new Cadillac Lyric, which we have a few on ground. That was highly anticipated as well.
And you guys have
And
the
it's,
Hummer too, technically, no?
yeah, so we actually, I was hoping to see it on the lot today so I could actually show you guys, but I think it's in detail now. But yeah, they came out with the EV, the Hummer pickup, and then the Hummer SUV. It's really neat because the pickup can actually do what they call the crab walk,
Oh
right?
yes, yes,
So
I've seen that.
okay, yeah, I saw it. Me and a coworker of mine, we were YouTubing it, trying to actually
Yeah, that's where I
demonstrate.
saw it.
I was like, how do I do this? And I still couldn't figure out. So I said to him, I'm like, do you know what you need to show your customer? He's like, honestly, Kim, I need to watch a few more YouTube videos. But at least they do release like information, but like a full on dialogue of like everything your customer needs to know. It's funny. You kind of have to learn that on your own, right? But the conversations with EV, I've had customers that drop terminology. I'm like, I don't even know what that is. Like, I don't know what that
You know what?
means.
I will say the EV customers, they are like they do their research, honestly. Like the ones that are really into it come in and they know what they're talking about. So I'll give it to them that like, hey, like they know their stuff when they come in to buy vehicles.
Well, if they come in and I've sensed, I'm like, you've done your research.
Oh yeah.
They've gone through every other. They've gone through other manufacturers. They've looked at the American website. Like I had customers that would call me like the morning of something that we would just get released and be like, "Hey Kim, like, did you hear that this was being released?" I'm like, I haven't been shared this information because alongside the other 50 million things I have to do, trying to keep up with releases, right? Like we do check, but like I'm going to be honest, I'm not always on top of the same day, but I usually find out in the same week because we have our, weekly sales meetings. But yeah, like I have my customers and and I'll be honest with them. I'm like, you know more than I do. I am just here to facilitate. Again, I'm here to facilitate the best deal I can for you and try to find you the right vehicle. And that's the most that you can
Yep.
do is just trying to assist them what they're asking for. But there are points where I'm just like, I felt like I was in science class again. And I was like, I need to brush up on
Whenever people talk to
terminology.
me about it too, I'm just like, okay,
Yeah,
like awesome, that sounds great.
that sounds great. Yeah, for me, I was like, the thing is, it's almost, it sucks to say this, but I'm one to own it. Like, it's just a disservice when I don't know all my information, right? But yeah, like for me, like it's just the different, there's just so many different components in each of our EV models, and it's just it's a little overwhelming because at first I was already learning about just the gas powered vehicles, right? And then now I have to also wrap my head around all these EV vehicles. So um, that's another like and I guess one topic that we can kind of it's controversial, but something if you have feedback on um, is it Elon Musk who says, and who was it? There's I don't, unfortunately, politics are not my thing. It's the idea that in 2025 or 2026, everybody's going to have an electric vehicle. And
Well,
I
I
don't,
know I know the federal government wants to basically regulate like new vehicle purchases. They want it basically all electric by I think 2030 or 2035. I don't remember the
Right,
actual date. I believe it's 2030 though.
right.
And again, like from my personal opinion, I think there's a spot in the market for it. Do I think it's for everyone? Not a chance. Because you got to think like the farmer that lives out in Owen Sound, how is he having an electric vehicle? Or even take this further, if they want to get into every kind of vehicle, how are you going to put an electric tractor out there for them to use, right? It just doesn't make sense. However, downtown Toronto, downtown Hamilton, downtown London, hey, you know what? If I'm only driving within my little town, great.
Yeah,
Like that makes sense to people. But personally,
yeah,
like I think the more rural parts of Canada, like it's gonna just be so difficult to push that to people that just they don't have access to, all the infrastructure that we do living in bigger cities.
yeah, yeah. No, it's just the government does have incentives. Like there's a lot of like there's a $5,000 incentives on certain EV models when a customer purchases, right? And there's once you purchase, the government also either provides what they call a flow card, right? So that's for you to purchase at any location that has charging points, or even support to install your own charging point in your home, right?
Yep. Which
So
a lot of
even
people are doing.
yes, a lot of people are doing that, and it's just something where I think it's really neat. But like I think it's your cute senior customers that come in and
Yeah.
they're like, I'm not ready for it, blah 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 blah, or some of them are like, I think I want to try it out, and I say, listen. So my suggestion, and I think I said this in the last time we met, was myself, I would probably lease an EV to see if I liked it. Because the thing is, there's different components. Like if you drive a lot, right? How much the range that you would get on one charge is going to be a big factor. However, with that being said, there's like the Cadillac Lyric, like a lot of the infrastructure with our EVs. We have the app that basically lets you set up your route, if that makes sense. So you can see if you're driving from here to Muskoka or here to Ottawa, you can see when you need to stop. And what's really neat about these apps, especially with the Cadillac Lyric, is that you can see when is the most appropriate time for you to step in or get off the highway to charge up, right?
Yeah. Which is
So I
good
think,
because again, like I don't, I'm not going to remember all the stops on the way to go to those places, right? Because I'll just go, hey, there's a gas station. I'm going to pull over and go, right?
yeah. And I guess my question to you is, for your customer and your audience, like what percentage do you find the percentage of your customers right now are EV customers? Could you be able to, is that something that you'd be able to
I'll be
build?
honest,
Yeah.
very little because
Yeah.
I drive a truck, and
Yeah.
honestly, I would say like 90% of my clients drive trucks. And that's
Yeah.
just it just is what it is. It's just that's my clientele realistically. I'm not saying
Yeah.
I don't have clients that don't have EVs. I can probably think of a few, but I still think it's really new for people to kind
Hmm.
of get into. But like I said, my
Yeah.
clientele is really like again is trucks. Like on all the Facebook groups I'm a part of, it's all truck
Hmm.
drivers. Like I golf a
Right.
lot, so I need to have a bigger vehicle to, to kind of I'm normally the
Yeah.
driver, so like I normally bring like 4 or 5 guys with me,
Right.
so I need to have a bigger space, right? So, like I said, I'm
Right.
not against them. I just think there's a market for them. My clients don't really like I said, it's not like they don't, but I would say my clientele is more that the
Yeah.
truck driver, the blue collar kind of guy that
Right.
is that's they need the trucks
100%.
for those things, right? So, like I said, there are trucks coming that way. Like you guys have the Silverado coming. I know
Yep.
Ford already has theirs out. I know Chrysler's kind of behind the ball, and they're having theirs is coming out. I think next year or the year after. So
Yeah.
there is steps towards going that route. I personally think it's gonna be tough to convince a blue collar worker to go electric personally, just because a lot of them are conservatives and they like what they like, and it's really hard to push them off that. So I don't know, we'll have to see like how time really tells. But yeah, the EV on my side, the only thing I would say about EVs that I have a concern about is on the home side of things, because people are putting them obviously chargers in their homes, and
Right.
the only concern I have, because I've already seen it happen, is, well, does home insurance then have to kind of pivot because these are obviously fire hazards because you're putting a charger in your home, like anything. Like I have my
That was
iPhone charger
my
plugged
next.
behind me. I probably shouldn't, but
I was
it's
my next
there,
question is
right?
how yeah, how does this lifestyle affect your premiums for home insurance? And does it look different for auto insurance?
So auto insurance actually there was companies that actually were discounting for EV vehicles at one point. I
Right,
believe a lot of them actually have pulled that discount because it's like I said, it's become more of a norm now, where before it was more of a trend or
right.
like a really starting off as a norm. So a lot of companies have pulled the discount. The discount was like 5% anyways, so it wasn't really
Mhm.
anything to be really hugely concerned about. Like I said, my concern is more on the home side. How does this
Right.
impact long term for things like home fires, right? Because again, this is an electrical component. And
Mhm.
again, this it's not like you're plugging it in, like it's not like your phone where you plug it in and it's plugged in for half an hour and you come back to it. Like most people are going to plug it in overnight. It's going to charge for 8 hours. And again, like
Yeah.
these things do happen, right? Like we can't say like home fires don't happen. They do, right? So I think my biggest thing is how are companies going to pivot to people charging their cars, and even take it a step further if we get into the things of, hey, I have an electric boat, hey, I have an electric, Sea-Doo, hey, I have an electric lawnmower. If they're all these things are charging at their home, do they become a more higher risk for home fires? I think they do personally. And but how do the insurance companies respond to that?
Yeah.
I don't know that question yet. But again, I have seen reports and stuff come out like in the insurance reports and news and like all the magazines that we have access to, that we
Right.
are starting to see electric cars cause fires. And it's either at a home and the home
Yeah.
catches fire, or I've even seen it sometimes too at the charging ports, like especially a lot in Hamilton. We have them like at the malls and stuff. I haven't seen it personally in Hamilton, but I have seen it throughout like the GTA area where like there's been times where like they'll catch fire at the charging port, right? So
Yeah.
I think moving forward, how do the companies address that? I think that will be a question maybe in the next 2 to 3 years on how claims kind of, transpire over that next 2 years, three
Right.
years to kind of get the patterns and trends of things. But I think that is a concern to insurance companies to say, hey, like, obviously gas is also flammable, like, not to be
Yeah.
silly or anything, like those things also can happen. We see that again. I see that all the time in Hamilton, Burlington, where like you'll go over the Skyway and like those, like literally in the last like year, I think I've seen more than I've ever seen, like 5 or 6, 7 like reports of car fires, right? So not to say fuel doesn't catch fire too, but I think the EVs like that will be a concern because it's not like you're going to the gas station and there's a massive tank of gas sitting underground. You're now charging it at your home, right? So what kind of risk does that apply? I think personally a higher one, but again,
Yeah.
what do the trends and patterns show us over the next few years? That will be what's going to be telling to what happens, especially on the home side of things. Personally,
Yeah. 100%. One thing I should have asked you before, do you allow comments under your like your viewers? Are they able to comment on whatever, like YouTube, right? And like wherever you
yep,
post it?
yep.
Yeah, so I
So
think
on
something.
YouTube, it's super easy.
Yeah.
Spotify, I have to actually put like a comment section in it, so it's not.
Right.
We can definitely do that.
Well, what I think is cool is that for anybody that's listening, just to see just some like interactive feedback, right? But since obviously the majority of your customers, they're huge on trucks. I mean, that's all like. That's what I sell. Just to see. So I just looked it up. The Ford F-150. I think it's called the Lightning, which is kind
Yep,
of cool.
yep.
Then obviously for the Silverado, it's just the first ever EV truck for us. So what I think would be cool is if like, if anybody has some feedback, what are your thoughts on, if you're driving a 2753 6.2 or diesel truck right now, what are your thoughts of switching over to a fully electric truck,
I
right?
love that.
Yeah, I'm interested to see, like, throw it in the comments and say, like, is that something you're like, this is the wildest idea? Or, is this something that you can see that could fit your lifestyle? Because I'm interested to see, I can't read your mind, you can't read their minds, right? As consumers, when you guys hear that for your day to day, because I may sell trucks, but I don't, when you ask me about towing capacity, I can tell you what it is on paper, what it says on the truck, but can I tell you day to day how well it would do either with your horse trailer or whatever trailer you're pulling, right? one thing I always say to my customers, I'm like, listen, you do this every day, right? So you would know best.
You know your machine more than I
You
do,
know your machines, you
realistically.
know what you need to pull. But what I'm curious to know for those of you who are listening to this and just like, your thoughts on would you go fully electric and see do you think it'd be able or be capable of doing what you need for your lifestyle? And, what is it that you do and would that suffice? Right.
I
So,
love that idea. Yep.
yeah, throw it in the comments, right? Just like, it's just interesting to see and just to see what, because, we have our outlook, you have your outlook, but we're just providers, right? That even for you, you said, for me, I'm not EV yet. You're not EV yet, but I know some people toy with the idea, but I'm interested to see
Yeah,
what our consumers
like I
actually
said,
think.
there's a market for it. I think there's people that are gonna really benefit from it. Like I said, personally, am I on that train yet? I don't think so. I don't think it's been proven enough for me personally. Like I said, for the truck side of things, there's just not enough options for me. Like, yes, the Lightning's out there. Great. I'm not a Ford guy personally.
Mhm.
I drive a Ram. It is what it is, right? So
Yeah. Is
I'll be
Dodge?
honest,
I don't think Dodge is. They're not there yet either. I don't think
they're not.
so.
Chrysler's not there yet. No. So they've announced that they're doing like they call it the Rev.
Oh,
It's just not there yet. I
right.
think it's another year, possibly two, before it gets there. My
Yeah.
mother-in-law actually is. I'll be honest. She bought a new Yukon Denali recently, and
Nice.
it's a looker. I'll tell you that. Like, I was so dead set on Ram and like how like nice those trucks looked, but like her Yukon, it's a beautiful vehicle. So I've been. I kind of told her over the weekend, I was like, you know what? Maybe the next one I'll have to maybe look at GM and possibly get into like a
Yeah.
Sierra or Canyon or something.
On,
I don't really need the full size truck. I just
no,
like it. But the
yeah.
Canyons, I love the look of, especially when you get into like the Elevation or the AT4s. Like, I
Yep.
love the looks of those trucks. So it might be,
AT4s.
might have to
Yeah.
look at it.
Yeah, no, the thing with the canyons and the canyons and the Colorados, they had a redesign this year, and anybody that's listening will probably know this. They did a really really sweet redesign. It's just a sharp looking truck, and it's your mid sized truck, right?
Yep.
So coming in, it's still going to feel like you're kind of driving like a full size or a regular SUV, but it's just like the capacity that you have in your bed. But what they've done is they've just really beefed up the exterior and interior, and it just looks really nice. Like interior wise, you have, I think it's like 11.5 inch infotainment screen, and everybody loves the bigger screens, but it has to be practical, right? So GM's done a
Yep.
really good job, and they've just have like some really nice finishing touches. Some of the other ones have, I think it was the Trail Boss, but they have, it's just even the, like just the
Do
finishes
they still
on,
make that line? The
what's
Trail
that?
Boss? The Trail Boss?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I just don't
So what
see them very often anymore.
So what it is that a trail boss, just like a Denali, is I always say there's a model of a vehicle, so it's a Canyon, Colorado, or Yukon, right? So the trail boss is Chev. That's what it is. That's what it is. So
Oh, okay, that's
yeah,
why. Because
yeah,
I'm more of a GM guy. I kind of like the looks better a little
it-
personally. So that's
yeah.
probably
So
why I'm not seeing them, is because
you're looking at more.
I've been looking at GMs realistically.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, you're looking at when you're looking at that, then you're probably leaning more towards like your Elevation or even your AT4 if you want a little
Is
bit
that
more.
kind of what the equivalent would be?
Yeah, yeah, I would say so. And what it is just a trim level, right? But they've just done a really
Yep.
good job. They've really kept up a set. It's just really aesthetically pleasing. Like I got on one the other day and I'm like, I think this is a great truck. It's just again, so the new Canyon and Colorados, right? We have two of them on our lot. They're not as readily available, right? They're still on an order status. There's also we have a brand new Buick Envista. So Buick has kind of redesigned itself as well, which is really neat. It's
Yeah,
no
because
longer
they used to be like the old person's vehicle,
never.
right?
It's not your grandma's car no more. Your grandma's
Yeah.
not pulling up in this Buick. It's really cool. Think of it as like a mixture between like your subcompact SUV mixed in with like a sedan, and it's got like this hatchback look. It looks super super sharp. I don't know. Maybe while you're editing, you can pull it up because it looks really really cool. And trust me, like it's when you get in, you're like, this is not something my grandma would drive, right?
Yeah.
Um,
No,
they've
I good on them, because like I said, they really changed their image in the last few years, because like I said, anyone that I talk to, they're like, I don't want to drive a Buick because it's like old person's car, but like, hey, they're sharp looking vehicles now. Like, I'll give it to
yeah,
them. Like, they've done a really good job.
they've redefined a lot, and don't get me wrong, like you still get the nice refined luxury more so than you would find in some of the Chevrolet products, right? So that's why people ask me like, what's the main difference? And Buick just offers a bit more refined aesthetics and just finishing touches, right? But yeah, like they've introduced the Envista, which is really neat because the MSRP can start at 28,000, right? Which is cheap for a brand new vehicle, right?
Oh yeah,
And then
that's really good.
Chevrolet introduced what they redesigned their tracks.
Yep.
Again, they did a really, really good job. And again, with that one's even crazier. You can they're not readily available, but if you order one or if you buy one, the entry level model is like 25,999, right?
That's really good.
So it's absolutely insane. You know, there are miniature, like minor things, like you can only get them in front wheel drive and things like that. But for most of the Canadian market, especially in these dense cities like London, Toronto, and well, not even Toronto. Toronto's out of the question. Sorry, you don't drive when you live in Toronto.
Yeah, literally you don't.
Okay, sorry, I meant more so like, you know, Kitchener, Hamilton, London, Sarnia, and things like that, like just the smaller cities. Like these vehicles are really good. They're great for students. They're great for anybody on a budget. You can get a car seat back there. Is it tight? Definitely. But there's cargo space. So I think that GM's just done a really good job of being able to cater to many different audiences in the market. And that's kind of what I love, right? Because back at Mazda, you did have more of a very affluent customer base. And then you had a lot of my customers were newcomers or younger students. So it was like two ends of the spectrum.
Yep.
Fine. But it's just neat because it's just like anybody walks through that door and you can probably find them something in our lineup. So,
and I love what you said about affordability too, because obviously we're having an issue with that in every aspect of life in Canada right now. So again, when people go to buy a vehicle, it is a massive investment for people, right? And affordability is a big issue with people right now. So being able to get something that they love, but also not have to break the bank for it, I think is super important in today's world.
Yeah, for sure. And again, it just ties back to like, if you're very particular on either your payment or either what it looks like, I always say, if you're thinking about upgrading your vehicle, then get to it as soon as possible. Do not wait. Because I have customers that are like, I really like this vehicle. It ticks off every boxes. Well, it won't come in for 6 months. And they wanted it in 3 or 4, right? So I hate to say this, but if I don't have it, I can either try to find it for you. But if you're really, you know, on it, you can call other dealerships and see what they have, right?
Yep.
But it's just a lot of legwork. And that's where being a salesperson, being the middle person, you always want to take that weight off of a consumer/customer. But yeah, it's just the only downside is if, unfortunately, where you and I kind of cross paths is if you have a customer that unfortunately writes off their vehicle. That right there, my condolences go out to these customers.
Yeah.
Not for their vehicle, it's for the position that you're put in. But if you find the right salesperson who can help kind of guide you through it, and have the knowledge, then you know you'll be okay. But it's always a tough situation when you have to buy a car that you weren't ready to buy yet.
Yep.
And
It's tough.
right? Yeah.
It's really
100%.
tough, right? Like you're not budgeting to do that. And like I said, at any point you could go out and like boom, like I said, a few years ago when it happened to me, I was not really wanting to get rid of my vehicle, but hey, you know, when someone T-bones you in a Chevy Silverado, and it's it's a little tough, right? So
yeah, no, that's just the worst. And I'm always like, I always think I would be so upset. You can be excited though, right? As much as we're kind of like being negative Nancy's here, because it does suck when you're not ready to buy something that like maybe it's not exactly what you wanted. You loved your last vehicle, you had a sentimental tie to it.
Yeah, I love my 1995 Honda
whatever
Civic.
You know, it's exciting. It's forcing you into a place of being uncomfortable and it's like starting a new chapter. Okay, now you're like the universe is giving you something new to start with, and that's another way to look at things. Is that when things
I like
don't
that
always
outlook. Yep.
Yeah, like okay, and you know what? It's just that's the only way you can look at it. You can't be like, oh my god, why did that deer right in front of me? Why was that person on their phone? Number one, we're alive and we're breathing. We get to live another day. Number two, though, you get to start a new chapter. And even though it's not one you wanted, you still get to buy a new car, right? So that's the outlook that you always have to have a positive outlook because there's a lot of room to be negative, but there's always room to be positive. So it's kind of carrying that through too. But yeah, other than that, it's just, it's still a really interesting journey with the buying process with all my customers.
Yeah, so what would you think in the next, let's say the next year, let's say 2024, because we're only in March, like, what do you think kind of changes? Like, are you hopeful for something to change? Are you want to see something happen? Like, what are your, maybe kind of some predictions that you're going to see in your industry moving forward into 2024?
inventory is returning, so that was the biggest ask that we all wanted. We wanted it because it was just easier to sell, but at the same time, it's made it a different type of selling cycle for us as individuals in the industry. But where I truly kind of want this for my customers and even for myself is, and this is an ask that's not going to be granted, is this something I see happening? No, and we touched on it earlier in the conversation, but it's just, interest rates, right? Like
Yep. The
it's
affordability.
it's just affordability. Like
Yep.
sometimes, and it's just, you feel bad for customers because it's just, they think this vehicle is this much, but when they see the interest, it's just like, holy, right? And it's the same no matter where they go. I have customers that tell me your interest rate's too high. I'm like, I've worked at 2 different dealerships. It's the same no matter where you go.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. It's just, I just have like this, just this heavy feeling for customers where I'm just like, I wish, and it's not so much new cars, 5%, I can live with that. Is it great? No, but I can live with that. It's just more so
It's
on our
the
used
used cars. That's hard.
Yeah.
That's like, I still can't believe like how high they are. Like, it's
Yeah.
just like, it's to me, it's almost like, why would you even bother going to a used? Like, why?
Yeah.
Like, seriously, it just doesn't,
Well,
unless it's like a killer deal. I just don't, or if you're paying cash, great. But like, if you're going to finance a used vehicle, I
yeah.
personally don't see the benefits of not buying new realistically.
Yeah. It's the so to get technical with it, it's so you have a vehicle that's a used one that's listed for 25,000 plus taxes, right? You're just paying taxes. Where on a new vehicle, you have the MSRP plus the freight plus the taxes, right? So it's technically the amount to finance. That's what it is. Some customers can buy a used one and pay it off in 5 years, where a new one, it's 7 years. And again, it's the type of consumer you are. Are you concentrated on payment? Or are you concentrated on the overall amount? And that's just another kind of, I don't try to categorize my customers, but that's kind of where I get to know my customers, like what's important to you, because I can show you the payment that you wanted. But when you look at the amount to finance, you're like, Kim, that's crazy. I'm not doing that. I'm like, what's more important to you? Right.
Yep.
And you are right. If it was me, I'd probably buy a new vehicle. But then again, do I want to be paying that amount over that time of period? Some people just aren't comfortable with that. And it's looking at those different aspects, because I'm a payment gal, right? I'm like, my house, I don't know when I'll pay it off. Would I love to pay it off soon? I'd love to own it outright. Probably not, because I'll borrow against it and buy another home, right? And this, I'm like, I took out a policy, so if I ever die, we're okay. That's fine. But it's different. Some people don't like having debt. Some people don't like carrying anything on their shoulders, where some of us are like, it's a payment. It would have been the same if I was saving for it, right?
Yep. No, it's fair. And again, great explanation. Because like I said, for me, like I would probably go that route too. I'd rather just buy new and, like, yeah, the interest rate's lower, and realistically, like, yeah, I might pay less on the used side, but hey, like the interest rates, that's what's hurting, right? Like it can really, like, if you're doubling interest rate, like that's a huge factor to consider, right? But again, everyone's situation is different. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what my opinion is the right one. Like obviously, you form that opinion. You go to your professionals, you ask them the questions. Like I said, then you form your own opinion, and then you decide from there, right? But that's what I would do realistically. So
and same here, and if feedback is different, you'll get the friend that it's like, my fiance is a cash buyer. He will not finance anything if his life depended on it. The only thing he's financing is the mortgage on our house. Other than that, him and I are like 2 completely different people.
Yeah.
It's just funny because just some people are like that, but that's kind of where you get to know your customers, and that's where I've learned, like, it's just trying to understand them to better help them. So when it comes to trends, I hope that's what I hope to see. Is that something that's going to happen? Probably not, but I can be hopeful. Other than that, I think it's just the introduction to more of the just our EVs that are coming out, and a lot more consumers coming in and wondering what that's like. But other than that, nothing crazy. No other pandemics I'm seeing in the future or anything like that.
We hope.
Yeah, no crazy, like, I think, and this is like not related to like the auto industry, but I think like the housing market for everyone, it's a different time right now, right? One thing that I was speaking to my realtor about was, because interest rates for the housing market are kind of plateauing, you're going to start to see more buyers. So that's going to be interesting to see how homes kind of do that. But
yeah,
other than that,
we've been looking to buy too, and it just we've been kind of humming and hawing about it, and it just, I don't know, it's so unpredictable. Like, again, like you can get so lucky. Like, I had friends before the pandemic that got so lucky they bought the perfect time. Now their home is like double or triple what they paid for it in like 5 years, right? So again, they got super lucky. I don't know. Again, we're not storytellers, or we're not future, we're not psychics. So if we
Yep.
were, we'd all do what we can see into the future. But again, I don't
Yep.
know those things, right? So what a month from now, what 3 months from now, what a year from now looks like, I don't really know, right? But I know it, obviously things do need to change. Are some of the houses going for way more than they are worth? Oh, 110% they are. I just look at
Yep.
some of these houses, I'm like, whoa, like, whoa, wait
Yep.
a second here. And it is what it is, right? Like, if people are going to spend that money, great. Will I spend that kind of money? Not a
No.
chance. So
One thing I think that if you're even considering, whether it be you, James, or any of our listeners, one thing that hit me upside was my buying power. Like, because when I bought in 2019, interest rates were 2%. And
yep.
now that the stress test is still in place, interest rates are double, if not more. When I went to apply for, I was looking at homes based off my own calculations. A pre-approval is absolutely important and key to be able to have, a successful home purchasing process. And like, that's just my knowledge from the bank and just from what I just experienced. I think when we went in for pre-approval 2 years ago, I was like, my jaw dropped. I was like, that's all I got approved for. It was basically the same amount I had not doubled my income or anything, but I made movements, right?
Yep.
I progressed, and I'm like, yeah, we should be able to borrow some more. No, and I was like, why? And it's not that I didn't understand. It just totally slipped my mind that like the interest rate, because it's higher, your borrowing power is even less. So although you're making more money, you might have saved up more. The interest rate kicks you in the butt. So for those of you who are considering, I would definitely get a pre-approval in place so you kind of know where you sit, because it would suck if you're looking at homes and you're like, I think. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait, that's right. Interest rates have doubled. So you can't borrow as much as you thought you could. Right.
Yep.
So
And I
that's a
think
little bit
any of my partners, like, they'll
yeah.
tell you that right off the bat. Like, get a
Yeah.
pre-approval. Make sure you're actually not wasting your own time going out looking at these homes and then finding
Yeah.
out you buy the home, but then you go to get the approval and you're like, oh wait, actually can't afford this, right? So I think not only just for my partners, but I think any mortgage broker would tell you that right off the bat. Like, get a pre-approval and then start your buying decision from there, because the
Yeah.
last thing like I said, you don't want to waste your time, right? You don't want to go through this whole process of falling in love with a home and then finding out, oh wait, we can't actually buy this, right? That's just demoralizing. So yeah,
You
I
just
think it's so
yeah.
important to do that. Like, that should be your first thing you're doing.
And that's what you would think. And I was in finance. I was like, I work around finances all the time, and I just kind of overlooked it. And then I was like, how could I have overlooked it? But you know what, things happen. But yeah, just the way things are changing, sometimes you just don't realize the effect on things. So just kind of like an off, I guess like off topic kind of side bit. That's just something I was like, you know what? I was like, I really like, I've been telling my friends, anybody, like, you know what, get a pre-approval first if you're even considering it. Because if you happen to come across a home that you really like, and then you're like, am I even eligible? Like, it's kind of like a shocker, but it puts you in line. Again, the silver lining is now you know where you need to go, right?
Yep, exactly.
But yeah, other than that, no crazy trends. I think EV is just going to be something that is going to be more of conversation and topic of discussion. So that's going to put me to work, and I'm going to have to brush up on my just reading skills. Like, I basically have it. If I could have it, what is it called? Like the electronic notebooks that you can download.
Oh, like Cold Notes.
No, it's like it's called a Kobe or something like that. I forget. Everybody's gonna laugh when they hear this. But anyways, you can download basically it to your iPad, and it's like, you can download books. But I literally have wanted to download books from my, like, just all this information, to be able to look at it in my free time.
Yep.
But anyways, I think I'm gonna have to wrap this up because I have to let the boardroom in for the next person here.
Definitely. Before you kind of go, one quick thing. What's your kind of takeaway? I always like to kind of leave with a takeaway. What would be your takeaway from the episode? One thing you want to leave with all the listeners?
Oh gosh, yeah. So I mean, what it is that just again, always, if you're wondering what tips I should give you in regards to the buying process, definitely do your research. Most dealerships, their manufacturers' websites, they'll have a build and price tool. Remember, it's before taxes, so don't get your hopes up. But do all your research first, and when you go in, like, just know that you have the ability to ask questions, and always let your salesperson know that you're just, you're really looking for someone to guide you through. And the world is not about trying to skate past you to get you to buy a car or anything. Times are different, right? So I think just definitely do your research and don't be afraid to ask questions when you walk into a dealership, right? But other than that, get ready to see more EVs coming out, and I guess that's all I can leave there for you guys.
Awesome. Well, again, I appreciate your time coming on. I know, again, a lot of things have changed over the last year since we last chatted, but again, I appreciate you taking the time and kind of giving our listeners some really great knowledge. And yeah, I can't. Well, this was fun, and like I said, hopefully in another year from now, I can have you back on, and we'll kind of talk about what the 2025 is looking like at that point. Then.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, James. It's always
no
nice.
worries, no worries, and thank you guys for tuning into this month's episode of the Broker Breakdown, and we'll check you guys in April.